Hey, what's up, everybody? It's David McGill. Now, recently, I've been having some conversations with a few trucking business owners, and one topic that kept coming up was drivers and the ability to find good drivers and also keep good drivers. So I thought I'd shoot this video to share a few pointers on how I'm able to find good drivers and also, keep good drivers. Now, the first thing that I do when I hire a new driver is I have a one-on-one conversation with them. And during this conversation, I pretty much explain to the drivers, what this business is. This is pretty much me taking my money, my hard-earned money, and investing in the trucking business. Now, a lot of times if you're working for some big companies and you hear, crazy numbers, they may not seem real to you anymore because, it just becomes numbers after a while. But when you work for a smaller company, those numbers are very much real. So I'll give you an example. So back before I worked for myself, when I was working in corporate America as an accountant, in the beginning of my career, I see $1 million numbers, $10 million numbers, and it was breathtaking to me. But then over time, they just became numbers. They didn't even represent money to me anymore because the numbers just grew to be, so large. Now, I don't want my drivers to feel that same way when they're working for my company. For example, if we have a $600 flat or, a repair that needs to be made, I don't want them to think that, hey, it's just $600. Like, these are really $600 that are coming out of my pocket. So the conversation that I had with my drivers, I just let them know, what risk I took in creating a trucking business, and also, how I saved up and how I put myself in a position to be able to start my own trucking business. And the reason why I do that is because I want them to see that I'm a real person and I'm trusting you literally with my financial future is in your hands, literally, like in terms of the steering wheel goes. So I say that to them just so that they can understand that, all the trust that I'm putting into them with, maintaining the equipment and things like that. So that's just one thing that I like to do, have a conversation with my drivers, letting them know how the company started so that they can get an idea of, how serious this is to me. I've gained a lot of respect from my drivers by doing that, by having those conversations. Another thing that I like to do is I like to empower my drivers. And what I mean by empowering my drivers is I like to give them the opportunity to, provide input into the business and some of the decisions that I make and things like that. A lot of times when you work for these big companies, you're just a number. Like, your opinion doesn't really matter. Your input, you really don't have any input. So with me being a smaller company, one way I like to empower my drivers is by giving them the ability to, help influence some of my decisions. So if they present me with a problem, the first thing that I ask is, so what do you think we should do? Now, by doing that, now they have more of a vested interest, whereas, it's more of not a partnership, but they just have more input and they feel more part of the team as opposed to just somebody who's just taking orders. Now, there's some situations where I may even know the answers already. I already know what I want to do, but I just ask for their input just to see if it, just to see if it lines up. And let's say they want to do something that I'm not in agreement with, then, I'll coach them along and say, well, if we do that, then what about this? And if we do that, then what about this? To basically, hopefully, to, open their eyes to some of the things that they might not be seeing, to where they can eventually come to the same conclusion that I came to without me just flat out telling them this is what we're going to do. So I found that to be a very good way of, helping create, my company culture amongst my drivers, is empowering them and letting them have say-so in the operations of the business. And lastly, one thing that I do with my drivers is I don't hold any information back from them. I show them how to run a trucking business. I show them a lot of the back office. They understand, trip planning and, how much loads pay and just the typical expenses that come about when you run a trucking business. Now, this may seem counterintuitive to a lot of you guys, but I don't want my drivers to drive for me forever. And I explain this to them. Like, I want them to ultimately go on to start their own trucking business or, do something else where they're working for themselves. Now, by giving up a lot of information on how a trucking business runs, a lot of them have come back to me and said, man, I've worked in trucking for 10 years, 20 years, and nobody has ever explained the other side to me. So they're appreciative of the fact that, I'm sharing this information with them because, I want to see them elevate and grow within, their own respective careers. So with that, like, I end up having a very loyal workforce. So if you think about that, for example, it may sound crazy that I'd be explaining to my employees how to go out and start their own business. But think about it from the other side now. If there's an opportunity where they can go and take a job with another company, maybe making a little bit more money, maybe having more flexibility in scheduling, things like that, but their long-term goal is to ultimately have their own truck or their own trucking business, then a lot of times they understand that the next employer won't think like I think in terms of, giving up the game to them. So it's almost like, man, they're getting paid to learn how to run their own business. So if that's what, so it becomes to the point where pay isn't the deciding factor on whether or not you work for me, because they start to recognize that there's other intangibles that they get here that they won't get, anywhere else. So hopefully that made sense to you guys. If you have any comments, if you agree with any of the stuff that I said, leave a comment below. If you disagree, hey, leave a comment below. Also, for more information, check out the description box. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you know anybody who could benefit from this information, go ahead and share this video with them also. And as always, thanks again for watching.